Good evening, and welcome to the 2015 Dallas Unitarian Universalist Compassion Talks, or DUUCTalks. Yes. My name is Beth. I am the Minister of Spiritual Life and Community Involvement here at First Unitarian Church of Dallas, and I will be your MC this evening. I'm so glad that all of you have joined us here for the DUUCTalks. You are in for a treat. 7 members of this church will share their moving and insightful stories about the ways that compassion and caring have affected their lives. First Unitarian Church of Dallas has been engaged in our current theme year, a year of living compassion, since September. Drawing on the words of the Burmese leader Aung San Suu Kyi, we've described compassion as having the courage to see, the courage to feel, and the courage to act when confronted with the suffering of ourselves or others. This year we have been inspired, challenged, and called to reflect on the role of compassion in our spiritual lives and to act on our compassion in meaningful ways. This evening you will hear how our speakers have engaged with this theme. Not all of the stories happened this year, however. Some of them occurred decades ago, and the effects of them are still rippling in their lives. You will hear 7 stories. About halfway through, we will have a short intermission where you can get up and stretch your legs and enjoy some refreshments in Channing Hall before returning for our final talks. Now, if you would please silence any cell phones or noise-making devices and get ready to listen, laugh, cry, and be inspired. Our first speaker is Diana Pollard. Diana is a 5th-generation Texan. She and her husband, Martin Abbott, joined the church about 2 years ago and are facilitators of the Sunday morning book study group, UU Learning Community. The title of her talk is The Compassionate No. Please welcome Diana Pollard.
Good evening. Good evening. I want to tell you a story about the compassionate no. In my 20s, I was pretty much the way I am now. Smart, tall, loud, and with a really wicked sense of humor. None of which were considered to be desirable traits for young women in the 60s. So I spent my 20s careening through life, looking for a purpose, and constantly banging up against the conventional expectations about what women in the 60s could and couldn't do. During this time, on 3 different occasions, there were people that said to me, Diana, no, stop. You have to change your path. You have to change your behavior. You have to conform to conventional expectations. In each case, these people truly had my best interest in heart. They wanted me to be successful. In each case, the path that they offered me was what they considered to be the best path, in fact, the only path available to women at the time. But in each case, what happened was I gained the understanding and the knowledge that I did have choices. And I gained the courage to follow my heart about which path I took. So the first time this happened was in the early 60s, and what happened with me happened with thousands of young women across the United States. I had actually been a model teenager. I made straight A's. I had all of the right values for a Southern young lady. Jane Austen, the Holy Bible, and drill team. I was to go to college and major in marriage and to live happily ever after. But then when I went to college, something wonderful happened. I started learning about the big, wide world out there. I quit reading Jeanne and started reading Betty. I got involved in civil rights. I quit going to church and started studying Eastern religions. I refused to join a sorority. I made friends with people that had different backgrounds than mine. I had no interest whatsoever in marriage, and I wanted to study math and physics. My parents were not pleased. This is not what they expected. So finally, in an act of desperation, my dad sat me down to talk some sense into me. And what he said was, Diana, it's my house. I set the rules, I pay the bills. If you want to live here, if you want me to pay for college, you have to follow the rules. Was he being compassionate? Yes. He loved me. He wanted me to be successful. He wanted me to be happy. And I knew that I was committing Southern woman sin number one. I was thinking of myself first. But he also made me realize that if you truly believe in something, you should be willing to act on it, to do something about it. And I knew that I could not embrace the future that they had envisioned for me. So I followed my heart, and I took the path they least expected. I left home, I quit school, and I moved to Houston to start a new life. So, fast forward a few years, and I have a job as a computer operator. I loved computers. They were just the coolest things. Didn't have a job as a programmer, which is what I really wanted, but I was an operator. Wasn't a very good one because I'm kind of clumsy, and I was always talking to the programmers about their work. This is an IBM card sorter. Now, the key information here is that that rack on the top holds 4,972 cards, and it's not actually attached to anything. It's just balanced up there. So, sure enough, one day I had the whole day sorting cards, filled that thing up, and managed to tip it over on the floor, cards everywhere. Well, suffice it to say, my supervisor was furious. And he said to me, Diana, you need to pay attention to your job. You've got to make a decision here. Are you a programmer or an operator? And I'm going to tell you right now, you will never be a computer programmer. No company will ever hire a woman to be a programmer. In fact, find out for yourself. Take some time off. Go and look. Was he being compassionate? Yes. He was trying to save my job. But what neither of us knew was that IBM had just released the System 360. It was the brand new business computer that was going to change computing throughout the world, which it did. They were selling thousands of these things, and there were dozens of companies in Houston that were desperate for programmers. So in a few weeks' time, I had a job as a programmer, making more money than my supervisor, and I was attending an IBM programming school. So once again, someone had cared enough to make me look at my choices. And once again, I had followed my heart in the choice that I made. Now, getting this job wasn't all that easy. There were a dozen of us candidates, me and a bunch of guys, and we had to take a programming aptitude test, a logic test, to see if we could be programmers. And I committed Southern woman sin number 2. I outperformed the guys. The people that gave the test couldn't make any sense out of this. They couldn't understand how a woman could score that highly. They ignored the obvious and decided that I had cheated. Well, think about it a minute. If I had the highest score in the group, whose work did I copy? So they asked me to take the test again, and I did, and this time, without the help of the guys, I made an even higher score. So I got the job. So fast forward a few years, I went to school part-time, and I did get my degree in math and physics. I had moved back to Dallas, and I had a job at a Fortune 500 company up here as a programmer. We called them software engineers back then. And I was really hot. I was amazingly good at it. It didn't matter. Software applications, operating systems, telecommunication, I did it all, and I was really, really good. I was also every manager's worst nightmare. I was the smartest one in the room, any room, and I had no social skills whatsoever. I thought the other programmers wanted to know how to improve their work. I thought that the vice president wanted me in his office every week, explaining what was wrong with his department and how to fix it. Now, in all fairness, I was committing Southern woman sin number 3. I thought my opinion counted. But you have to understand the workplace in the 60s. Back then, if a woman didn't agree with a man, he thought she just didn't understand him. So he talked louder. By the time I left that job, I had every manager in the place yelling at me. Finally, my boss had had enough. He sat me down and he said, "Diana, you're acting like a consultant, and you're not a consultant. You're an employee. You need to act like one." Was he being compassionate? Yes. He was actually trying to save both our jobs by this time. But once again, someone cared enough to make me look at the choices that I had. And once again, I followed my heart. And in fact, I did go out in a couple of years later and start my own consulting company. And it turns out that I do have a real talent for helping people understand their business problems and solve them. But I had some really important lessons to learn. One of which is it's so much more important to be kind than it is to be smart. That people do want to change, they do want to improve their lives, but only on their own terms and in their own time. So many of the business people that I work with feel trapped, feel that they have no good choices. When I'm working with a senior executive on his growth strategies, or with a young business professional with her or his business venture, I really strive to help these people understand that they have choices and what those choices are so they can take action. And when I do this, I feel like that I'm paying forward all of the good information and support that I got in my early career. Because although these 3 individuals that helped me so early in my life had their own view of what success looked like and were offering me their choices about what I should do, what they helped me learn is that the way out of any dilemma is to understand that you do have choices. Only then can you take action. So as I look at the next phase of my life and all of the many choices I have, as I wonder where my heart will take me next, I remember these 3 individuals with fondness and with gratitude for their compassion and for their willingness to say, "Diana, no." And to all of you women out there, whatever your age, whatever your aspirations, whatever barriers you face, my fondest hope is that you too can find the choices that fit for you, and that you can find a path that will follow your heart. And that's my story. Thank you.